The first one is excessive debt. Now, I am saying this as somebody who got over, I got out of $215,000 of debt with my wife, and this one hit home. This one hits hard. And so this is high interest debt, like maybe credit cards, card loans, hey, maybe even student loans, private student loans. Like they should be criminal sometimes, but sometimes, hey, I have nothing against student loans because they did help me. They helped me get through college, and they're worth it as long as you have something or a skill, as long as you learn a skill that is going to allow you to pay them off. But anyway, all of these high interest debt, credit cards, car loans, they can drain your finances over time. And I think we all know what the consequences could be, especially if you're somebody that got student loans. So here's the side effects. If you don't address your high interest debt, it could be constant payments that eat up your income, little left to save or invest, and of course, in the worst cases, the stress and the limited options, especially maybe you won't be able to save for an emergency fund, you won't be able to invest in your future, grow your wealth, and you're always going to be on the hamster wheel and never really having the sense of security and peace that can come with having some money saved up, of course, and invested. Now, what most people do and why it doesn't work in these situations when they got high interest debt is they make minimum payments only on their high interest debt. Maybe they take on more debt to cover the expenses. Essentially, you are covering this hole here. You make a hole here to cover another hole here, so you never really get out of it. Also, at some point, you start hoping that your income will catch up and you're going to make so much money that you won't have to worry about it. But at the end of the day, this keeps you in a debt cycle with interest compounding faster than you can pay it off. So here's what you can do in this situation in case you are somebody that is dealing with this challenge right now. And that is, of course, pay it up aggressively. Now, one of the best strategies that I personally like when it comes to paying off debt is the snowball method. There's a couple of strategies. There's an avalanche, there's snowball. I think there's another one. But I like the snowball because that's the one that gives you the most emotional support and momentum to keep moving forward. Also, avoid new debt for once. There's going to be some sacrifice that you got to do when you are getting out of debt. But hey, I'm actually going to share a video in the description here of a video that I made about debt, like how my wife and I got out of $215,000 of debt. So I'm going to link that in the description. Once you get out of debt, that's going to help you free up your money for saving and investing and, of course, letting your wealth grow. Okay, so now the second biggest wealth killer that I've identified is lifestyle inflation. Now, this is when your spending increases as your income increases. Maybe it is a nicer car. Maybe it is a bigger house. Maybe now that you make more money, maybe now you are trying to go business class or first class without credit card points, right? So now you want, because you're earning more, you feel like you deserve more and you want more expensive things. Now, what happens is if you don't address this lifestyle inflation, no matter how much you earn, you will never be able to get ahead. Also, your savings rate will stay flat. They will stay flat or it will drop, and you'll always deep down feel behind. And you're never gonna, again, just like the previous one, when you have high interest debt, you'll never be able to have the sense of security and peace that comes with having money set aside. So what most people do in this situation when we are faced, or at least when you become aware of the lifestyle inflation that you may be dealing with, because it takes a certain level of awareness. In order for this to be addressed, the first thing you gotta do is be aware that it exists. But hey, what most people do is they upgrade their lifestyle with every raise. Maybe they justify new expenses as deserved because, hey, now you're making more money, you work hard. But this leaves my Spanish accent, this leaves little to invest, so wealth doesn't really grow. And it's almost like, it's not like you just address it once and then you forget about it, right? Once you start making more money, especially as you grow older in your career, maybe you start having a business and your business starts growing, you got to notice that it's something that you got to remind yourself like constantly of like, okay, I'm getting extra money this month, or I'm getting extra money this year. I'm getting a bonus, unexpected money, or maybe taxes. Hey, as opposed to just automatically saying, hey, I'm just going to buy something X. Just, hey, how much of it can it go to my savings or to my investment, and then spend the rest, right? Like personally, I have a 70-30, about 70% like of it. I try to like put it away if I have extra money, unexpected money that is. And the 30% I just expend it. Like that's the way it is. I also don't like to restrict myself too much to the point where life just won't become enjoyable, right? So to me, it's just a balance on like how you really approach your life and enjoying it as well, because you do want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So one thing that you can do is you can implement a 70-30 rule, or you can also like keep expenses stable as your income grows. That's a really good strategy as well. You can save, invest most of your raises. You can invest the whole thing. And at the end of the day, that's really going to help you build a gap between your earnings and your spendings. And that's going to fuel your wealth growth. So the number 3 biggest wealth killer that most people overlook is water sip. Not investing at all. Now, I have a soft spot in my heart for people who are afraid of investing. In many cases, not so much because they can't, it's because they don't want to, because they fear putting their hard-earned money in the market. If you want to learn more about that, on how to overcome those feelings and when to know whether or not you're ready to at least start with like $1 or $10, that's not going to make you broke or rich. I made a video on 6 signs that if you're ready to start investing. So go check it out after this one. But this is when you keep money maybe in a low interest account, missing out on compound growth. Like you're not even keeping your money in a high yield savings account, which I'm actually going to leave a couple of recommendations, top recommendations. If you don't have a high yield savings account just yet, I'm going to leave it in the description of this video. But if you keep it in a checking account, right? You're keeping your money, thousands of dollars in your checking account. It's just being eaten up by inflation. And if you don't address this, your savings is going to lose value to inflation. As I mentioned, you're going to miss out on wealth building opportunities. And of course, your retirement can be at risk if you don't address it, if you're not growing your money. So most people in this situation, they'll just leave their money in their checking, their savings. Like they start avoiding investing out of fear of confusion. And the cash just ends up losing value over time, especially after it gets hit by inflation, especially when it's high. So here is something that I suggest you do slowly but surely, especially if you are somebody that already has the income and the funds, but you're afraid. So slowly but surely invest in your index funds or your retirement account. If you already got a retirement account, check. I hear some people asking like, hey, if I'm investing in retirement, like how should I invest in the stock market? Like if I want to keep investing. So before you start investing in the stock market, make sure that you have your 401k fully matched, whether it is 4 or 5% or 8%. Get it fully matched, because otherwise you're losing money. And then what you want to do is, or what I suggest you do is, what I do is max out your Roth IRA, because your Roth IRA is going to give you income tax-free once you retire. So you set up your Roth IRA, you max it out, and then you go back to your 401k and then max out your 401k, which this year at least is about 23,000, I believe, this year. So that's kind of like the order of those three. It's like fully matched 401k, Roth IRA, fully fund your 401k, and then you can also do other things like your backdoor Roth IRA, mega backdoor Roth IRA. So there's other more complex, but I just want to keep it pretty simple here. So just remember that compound growth, it's going to beat inflation and it's going to build the wealth over time. Okay. The fourth biggest wealth killer I want to share here with you in this video is buying new cars. And that is purchasing new vehicles that rapidly lose the value, right? They depreciate fairly quickly. And I get why people want to, like, one of the reasons why my dad always tells me like, hey, make sure you buy a new car, because the car, it's going to last you forever. You can take care of it. You can have maintenance on it. And if you treat it well, then it will treat you well back, right? So, but me, I don't have that approach. And I'm going to tell you what my approach here is here in a second. But the truth is that you lose thousands in the value of the car very quickly. And it's not so much that, to me, the biggest problem is not so much that the car loses value, because when I buy a car, I don't intend to resell it, right? It's not something that like, oh my God, if my car loses 100% of its value, like, and this is just me, I wouldn't be as concerned, because I buy the car almost like, it's not like I buy a pair of jeans. Like, I don't buy a pair of jeans with the intent of selling those jeans back. It's just a car. Like, I'm gonna use it until the day it just collapses, right? So that's kind of like, I'm gonna get the most use out of it. That's my personal mindset. So I'm not really. I'm also not concerned about like mileage and like, no. I buy a car so I can use it, run it to the ground, and get a new car. If I get anything back from it, awesome. If not, then so be it. That's just my philosophy. So, but the biggest problem and the bigger issue here is the high monthly payments. So that's my biggest problem. Like, if I had the biggest car payment I've ever had was $981. And that is for the car that I recently bought like last year with my wife. We try to finance it because we kind of got a really good rate on it. And once we made the first payment, or it was time to make the first payment, we just couldn't do it. As I mentioned previously, my wife and I got out of $250,000 of debt. So we kind of like scarred for life when it comes to debt. And so we tried to finance the car, and we were like, okay, this really makes no sense. So we paid it off. We decided to just pay it off. So I think we paid it off in like 45 days. So we don't owe anything on the car. So all of that to say, it's the monthly payments that you got to be careful of. And ideally, of course, I suggest that you buy the car cash if you have that ability, or save a little longer and make that possible for yourself. So in these cases, right, like what most people do, of course, they buy and lease new cars for status, maybe convenience, maybe like people ignore depreciation, which personally, that's not really something that I mind, but it's more so the high interest payments that they don't care, that they don't seem to care about. And also a lot of people buy, and I've been here myself, a lot of people buy cars based on the monthly payments. But if you buy it only on a monthly payment, and then you're going to end up paying more money in the long run. So here's what I suggest you do. So buy reliable used cars and that are certified used. Now, that's really like my go-to type of car, certified used cars. So you can make the argument nowadays that sometimes used cars are even more expensive. I don't understand the whole math why. But when I bought my cars, I bought them certified used, and because they will be cheaper, and I'll save tens of thousands of dollars buying certified used cars as opposed to buying brand new cars. Hey, that's just me. So let me know in the comments, by the way, what your experience has been buying cars, what you prefer buying. Like, do you go by math? Do you go by, sometimes you just make the decisions based on not so much the math, but you make the decisions. We are emotional beings. And so when it comes to cars, sometimes you just want to buy a car that you just like it. You want to enjoy it. So you're like, I don't care paying 10 grand more. If I'm going to buy a car, I'm just going to enjoy it. I don't know. We can go back and forth and talk about cars all day, but at the end of the day, man, just have no monthly payments. There's no better feeling than having no monthly payments on a car, or no monthly payments to anybody for that matter. Okay, so now the fifth biggest wealth killer that most people overlook is paying for inconvenience. And of course, this is overspending on delivery, subscriptions, and services for ease, for time savings. And hey, don't get me wrong here. I love saving time. You can buy back your time all you want, but the problem I've identified is it's more so when you start doing it excessively, and many expenses go unnoticed. They sneak up on you. And case in point, so my wife and I recently, we found that we were eating out too much. We were having takeout too much. And so we decided to obviously like take control of that, right? Because that was eating up our money. So small expenses add up, like maybe it's into the budget, and you're going to have less to save or invest. And this is when we regularly order takeout. Maybe you use delivery apps and all the fees. It's not so much also like the food. It's also like the fees that you get on top of all there's too many fees from Uber Eats or DoorDash, etc. And we can underestimate the long-term cost, and the convenience fees quietly erode our finances. So here's something that I suggest you do. You can limit your convenience spending. You can have a weekly limit. Like my wife and I, we have a weekly limit on how much we can spend, both of us, on takeout, on entertainment, on Amazon purchases, even on groceries. We have a limit on how much we can spend. And sometimes we go a little over, sometimes we go a little under. The key is to have a threshold and a little alarm that tells you, hey, by the way, just be mindful, right? Awareness. Because if you're just spending like Congress, if you have no awareness, you're just going to keep swiping. And guess what? You're not going to grow your wealth. You're not going to grow your savings, and you're going to stay financially stuck. So also remember that small savings add up and can be invested, boosting, of course, your long-term wealth. So to recap, what did I talk about in this video? I talked about excessive debt. I talked about lifestyle inflation. I talked about not investing. I talked about buying new cars as opposed to certified used or slightly used cars, depending on your budget, not just stretching yourself. And of course, also paying for excessive convenience.